There is a question older than religion. When you were born, did you arrive alone? Across continents and centuries, cultures that never met each other recorded the same idea. A human being is not a single entity. We are accompanied. In Siberian shamanic traditions, documented by historian of religion Mircea Eliade in Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, the shaman is said to possess a spirit helper, often in animal form, who accompanies the soul from initiation until death. Eliade writes that the spirit helper is not symbolic, but experiential. It is encountered in visions, dreams, and altered states, and functions as a guide between worlds. Among the Lakota, the holy man Black Elk described receiving visions in childhood that revealed animal guardians who stood at the cardinal directions. In Black Elk Speaks, he recounts how the thunder beings and sacred animals came to him before he understood their meaning. The vision preceded the explanation. The encounter came before the teaching. In Ojibwe tradition, young people undertook a vision quest, fasting alone in the wilderness to encounter what is sometimes described as a personal totem or guardian being. This was not chosen intellectually, it was revealed. The pattern is consistent. The guardian appears before identity is fully formed. Now consider something else. In the Corpus Hermeticum, an ancient Greco-Egyptian text attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, we read the principle, as above, so below. The human being mirrors cosmic order. If the heavens move in cycles, so too does the soul. If the stars imprint patterns on matter, then birth itself may be more than biological timing. It may be alignment. In Vedic astrology, the moment of first breath, the exact configuration of the nakshatras or lunar mansions, determines the energetic signature of the incarnation. In the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, the sage Parashara outlines how specific constellations carry animal symbols and instinctive qualities. Ashwini carries the horse, Bharani carries the elephant, Mrigashira carries the deer. These are not decorative metaphors. They describe temperament, instinct, and destiny currents. In Chinese cosmology during the Han Dynasty, the zodiac animals were not merely calendar markers. Each year carried elemental and animal qualities that shaped collective and individual fate. A person born in the year of the tiger was believed to carry courage and volatility. The rabbit carried diplomacy and sensitivity. These associations formed part of statecraft, medicine, and family planning. Different continents, similar conclusion. Birth is an energetic imprint. And if birth carries an imprint, then perhaps it also carries an accompaniment. Carl Jung, in The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, proposed that animal figures arise from deep psychic structures older than conscious identity. He observed that animals in dreams often represent instinctual forces, not random but foundational. He argued that these archetypes are inherited patterns of perception. What if ancient shamans were not inventing myth? What if they were describing an inner architecture of the human psyche, one that modern language called archetype and ancient language called guardian? There is a reason children are instinctively drawn to a particular animal before they understand symbolism. There is a reason certain creatures recur in dreams across decades. There is a reason fear and fascination often revolve around one specific species. The pattern is not arbitrary. It may be relational. In multiple shamanic systems, the guardian spirit animal is not assigned socially, it is revealed through encounter, often during illness, crisis, or initiation. The animal appears in dream, in repeated external signs, or in visionary states. The shaman does not select it, the spirit does. If this is true, then the question shifts. It is not, what is my favorite animal? It is what energy was present at my arrival. Because if the moment of birth is a cosmic alignment, and if instinct is structured by archetype, then your guardian spirit animal may not be a random guide discovered later in life. It may have been with you from the beginning. If the guardian spirit animal is not chosen by preference but aligned by design, then we must examine the moment of arrival. Nearly every advanced metaphysical system places extraordinary emphasis on the first breath. In Hellenistic astrology, the natal chart is cast for the precise time and location of birth. The ascendant, the zodiacal sign rising on the eastern horizon at that exact moment, is considered the mask of incarnation, the interface between soul and world. Claudius Ptolemy in Tetrabiblos describes the rising sign as shaping temperament, physical constitution, and instinctual reaction patterns. Notice the language: temperament, instinct, reaction. These are animal domains. The zodiac itself is a bestiary. Aries, the ram; Taurus, the bull; Leo, the lion; Scorpion, the scorpion; Capricorn, the sea-goat. Even the signs represented by humans, Gemini, Virgo, Aquarius, are governed by planetary forces historically associated with animal symbolism and instinctual drives. This was not accidental design. Ancient sky watchers encoded terrestrial behavior into celestial cycles. They observed patterns in nature, migration, mating seasons, territoriality, and correlated them with planetary rhythms. In the Vedic system, the imprint goes even deeper. The lunar zodiac of 27 nakshatras divides the sky into energetic sectors through which the moon passes each month. The moon governs mind, emotion, and subconscious patterning. Therefore, the nakshatra occupied by the moon at birth is considered foundational to the soul's psychological blueprint. The Taittiriya Brahmana and later astrological texts, such as the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, associate many nakshatras with specific animal symbols. For example, Ashwini is symbolized by the horse, swift, pioneering, kinetic. Rohini is linked to the serpent or cow, fertile, magnetic, sensuous. Mrigashira is associated with the deer, searching, alert, sensitive. Magha is connected with the lion, regal, ancestral, authoritative. These animals are not mascots, they encode behavioral signatures. A person born under Mrigashira may display the deer's restlessness, always seeking, rarely settled. A Magha native may carry lion-like command without needing to announce it. Here we begin to see a structural possibility. The guardian spirit animal may not be a separate entity imposed upon you. It may be the externalized reflection of your birth-encoded instinctual current. In Chinese metaphysics, this principle is systematized through the 12 earthly branches, the well-known zodiac animals: rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, dragon, snake, horse, goat, monkey, rooster, dog, pig. Each birth year carries both an animal and an element. A water tiger differs from a fire tiger. A metal ox differs from an earth ox. The animal provides archetypal instinct. The element modifies its expression. The Han Dynasty cosmological system treated these combinations as energetic blueprints, influencing personality, compatibility, and fate cycles. This was not superstition in its cultural context, it was cosmobiology, an attempt to map human behavior to seasonal and planetary rhythms. Now consider shamanic testimony again. In many Central Asian traditions, the shaman's helping spirit is encountered during illness or altered states, but the animal form often reflects innate temperament. A fierce individual may encounter a wolf or eagle. A perceptive and silent individual may encounter an owl or lynx. What if the birth chart provides the skeleton and the visionary encounter provides the flesh? Carl Jung observed that archetypes manifest both inwardly and outwardly. In the Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, he wrote that archetypal figures may appear in dreams as autonomous presences. They behave as if they possess independent will, yet they also reflect aspects of the psyche. This duality is critical. Your guardian animal may be both internal archetype and external intelligence. Birth energy determines resonance. Resonance determines which archetype activates most strongly, and that archetype may be experienced as a guiding presence. The Hermetic tradition reinforces this logic through correspondence. In the Asclepius, a text associated with the Corpus Hermeticum, humanity is described as a microcosm of the greater whole. If that is true, then the animal forces of nature are not outside you, they are encoded within your psychic architecture. At the moment of birth, the cosmos was arranged in a specific configuration, never to be repeated in exactly the same way again. The planets occupied precise degrees, the moon stood in a particular mansion, the horizon cut the zodiac at an exact angle. That configuration is not random motion, it is patterned rhythm, and rhythm produces signature. In contemporary language, we might call it frequency. If each animal archetype represents a distinct frequency, lion as solar dominance, deer as lunar alertness, serpent as transformative renewal, eagle as aerial perception, then the birth moment determines which frequencies are strongest within you. The guardian spirit animal may be the embodied symbol of that dominant frequency. But there is a crucial distinction to make. Birth energy indicates predisposition. It does not guarantee conscious alignment. Many individuals live disconnected from their archetypal current. A person born with strong wolf symbolism, loyalty, pack instinct, territorial intelligence may suppress it in favor of social conformity. The result is restlessness, fragmentation, or recurring symbolic dreams. When the guardian animal appears repeatedly in dreams, art, or external encounters, it may not be arriving for the first time. It may be reintroducing itself. Across cultures, the moment of first breath is treated as sacred because it marks the soul's full entry into material density. In Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it is written that God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Breath marks animation. Animation activates instinct. Instinct is animal intelligence. The word animal derives from the Latin anima, meaning soul or breath. This linguistic detail is not trivial. Your guardian spirit animal may be the form your anima seeks to take when it seeks to guide you.
If birth energy explains the imprint, it does not yet explain the presence. Across multiple traditions, there exists a concept more unsettling than symbolism: the idea that something walks beside you. Not metaphorically, literally. In ancient Greek thought, Socrates spoke openly of his daimonion. In Plato's Apology, Socrates describes an inner voice that restrained him from certain actions. He did not describe it as imagination. He described it as a guiding intelligence that intervened. The word daimon in pre-Christian Greece did not mean demon. It referred to an intermediary spirit, a being between gods and humans. Later, in Plato's Symposium, Diotima explains that daimons are messengers who carry influence and guidance between realms. This establishes a structural precedent. The human being is accompanied by an intermediary presence. Now shift northward. In Celtic tradition, particularly in Scottish and Irish folklore, there exists the concept of the fetch, a spirit double that can appear as an animal or mirrored form of the self. In some accounts, it precedes death. In others, it functions as a protective or warning presence. The Norse had a similar concept known as the fylgja. In the Icelandic sagas, a fylgja is described as a spirit companion that often appears in animal form and reflects the character of the person it accompanies. A warrior might have a bear or wolf fylgja. A cunning individual might have a fox. Importantly, the fylgja could appear in dreams to others as a sign of the person's presence or fate. This is not simple symbolism. It is personality externalized. In shamanic cosmologies of Siberia and Mongolia, as recorded by Mircea Eliade, the spirit helper often appears as an animal during initiation rites. The initiate may undergo a visionary dismemberment, a symbolic death, after which an animal spirit reconstructs or accompanies them. This spirit becomes essential for navigating the spirit world. The shaman does not command the spirit. The relationship is reciprocal. In many Native American traditions, the totem is misunderstood in modern pop culture. A clan totem differs from a personal guardian. Among the Ojibwe, individuals might receive a personal spirit guide during a vision quest, while the clan system operated separately. The personal spirit was not a mascot. It was relational, protective, instructive. Black Elk, in Black Elk Speaks, recounts animal presences that did not behave like psychological fragments. They spoke, moved, and instructed with autonomy. We now face a tension modern psychology attempts to resolve. Are these animals internal archetypes, or are they independent intelligences? Jung addressed this indirectly. He observed that archetypes behave as though they are autonomous. In analytical psychology, he noted that figures arising from the unconscious often possess agency. They speak with voices not consciously manufactured. They present information beyond deliberate construction. Jung did not insist these figures were external spirits, but he did not reduce them to trivial imagination either. He described them as contents of the collective unconscious, inherited psychic structures that predate individual identity. Now consider the implications. If archetypes are universal and inherited, then when someone encounters a wolf guide in Siberia and another encounters a wolf in North America, they may not be inventing separate myths. They may be interfacing with the same deep structure of psyche. But shamanic traditions would go further. They would argue that psyche and cosmos are not separate. In animistic cosmologies, consciousness permeates nature. The wolf is not merely a projection of instinct. It is a being with spirit. Therefore, when a person aligns strongly with wolf energy at birth, the boundary between internal archetype and external spirit becomes porous. The Hermetic principle again becomes relevant. As above, so below. As within, so without. If the inner animal archetype resonates strongly enough, it may attract or align with an external spiritual intelligence of similar frequency. This is how many traditions reconcile the duality. The guardian spirit animal is both reflection and relationship. It reflects your birth-encoded instinctual current. It relates to you as a guiding presence. The Norse sagas provide a subtle insight here. The fylgja was said to appear more visibly to those with second sight. In other words, not everyone perceives their companion equally. The presence may be constant, but awareness varies. This explains a modern phenomenon. Some individuals report lifelong, recurring dreams of a single animal. not random wildlife, one species repeated over decades. Others experience repeated physical encounters. Hawks appearing during major decisions, snakes during transformation periods, wolves during isolation phases. Skeptics attribute this to selective attention, yet repetition clustered around life transitions suggests pattern. In shamanic initiation narratives, the animal often appears during crisis. Illness, psychological breakdown, or existential collapse precedes encounter. The shamanic shaman's calling frequently began with sickness, followed by visionary animal dismemberment and reconstruction. Symbolically, the ego fractures. Instinct reorganizes. The animal becomes guide because the conscious personality can no longer navigate alone. This brings us back to birth energy. If a person's natal configuration emphasizes lunar and watery archetypes, serpent or fish symbolism may dominate their dream life. If solar and fire signatures dominate, lion, eagle, or horse imagery may recur. The birth imprint predisposes the type of double most likely to emerge. The double is not a second body. It is an energetic counterpart. In Egyptian religion, the concept of the Ka described a life force double that accompanied a person. Though not always animal in form, it functioned as a parallel essence. In some depictions, deities manifested with animal heads, symbolizing the fusion of human and instinctual intelligence. The guardian animal fits this structural pattern. It is the instinctual intelligence that predates rational identity. It may appear autonomous because instinct often feels foreign to the ego. Your conscious mind may resist what your deeper nature knows. Thus, the wolf appears when you deny your need for solitude. The eagle appears when you refuse to rise above entanglement. The snake appears when transformation is overdue. The animal is not invading. It is correcting misalignment. In many indigenous systems, disrespecting or ignoring one's spirit animal was believed to result in imbalance, loss of vitality, recurring misfortune, or psychological fragmentation. Harmony required acknowledgement, not worship, alignment. So the question becomes more precise. If birth energy imprints instinctual structure, and if archetypes can manifest as relational presences, how do we determine which animal corresponds to your specific configuration?
If the guardian spirit animal reflects birth energy, then we must test the hypothesis across systems rather than rely on a single cosmology. When independent traditions converge on similar animal archetypes linked to time cycles, the probability of structural pattern increases. We begin with the Western zodiac. The 12 signs familiar in modern astrology originate in Babylonian sky mapping, later systematized in Hellenistic astrology and codified by Claudius Ptolemy in the 2nd century CE in Tetrabiblos. The zodiac is not abstract geometry, it is zoological symbolism layered onto celestial coordinates. Aries is the ram, forceful initiation, head-first action. Taurus is the bull, endurance, territorial grounding. Leo is the lion, sovereignty, visible authority. Scorpio is the scorpion, hidden power, strategic intensity. Capricorn is the sea-goat, survival across harsh terrain. Even signs represented by humans contain animal rulerships. Virgo is ruled by Mercury, but historically linked to harvest animals and fertility cycles. Aquarius, though depicted as a water-bearer, is traditionally ruled by Saturn and later Uranus, planetary forces associated with cold detachment and wide-angle perception, often symbolized by birds of high altitude. The Western zodiac maps instinct to seasonal light cycles. Aries begins at the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, a surge of forward motion in nature. Leo peaks during high summer, solar dominance. Scorpio arrives in late autumn, decay, secrecy, and survival before winter. The animals mirror environmental behavior. Now we turn to Vedic astrology, which predates the Hellenistic system and operates both through the 12 rashis, signs, and the 27 nakshatras. The nakshatras are particularly relevant because they are lunar-based, and the moon governs instinct and subconscious patterning. Each nakshatra carries symbolic associations that often include animals. Ashwini, the horse, swift and healing. Bharani, the elephant, bearing weight and responsibility. Kritika, associated with the goat, fierce and cutting. Rohini, linked to the serpent or cow, fertile and magnetic. Mrigashira, the deer, searching and alert. Magha, the lion, ancestral authority. Anuradha, the deer or lotus symbolism, loyalty and devotion. Mula, the dog, probing roots and destruction of illusion. In Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra, the nature of the moon's placement is said to determine psychological disposition and life orientation. The animal symbols are not decorative, they encode temperament. What is striking is the recurrence of certain species across cultures. The lion appears in both Western Leo and Vedic Magha symbolism. The goat appears in Western Capricorn and in Kritika symbolism. The scorpion appears explicitly in Western Scorpio and implicitly in Vedic systems through serpentine imagery. Independent systems, different geographic origins, similar instinctual mapping. Now we examine Chinese cosmology. The Chinese zodiac, formalized during the Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 220 CE, assigns one of 12 animals to each year in a repeating cycle. Unlike the Western zodiac, which is solar month-based, the Chinese system is lunar year-based and integrates the 5 elements. Rat, adaptive, opportunistic intelligence. Ox, endurance and methodical strength. Tiger, courage, volatility, leadership impulse. Rabbit, sensitivity, diplomacy, pattern awareness. Dragon, charismatic authority and mythic force. Snake, strategic transformation and intuition. Horse, independence and momentum. Goat, creativity and inward refinement. Monkey, ingenuity and unpredictability. Rooster, precision and vocal assertion. Dog, loyalty and protection. Pig, generosity and pleasure orientation. Each animal cycles through wood, fire, earth, metal, and water variations, altering expression. Here we observe convergence again. The horse appears in Vedic Ashwini and Chinese horse years, associated with speed and movement. The snake appears in Western Scorpio symbolism and Chinese snake years, associated with hidden intelligence and transformation. The ox and bull mirror Taurus themes of grounding and endurance. The lion parallels tiger and dragon as apex forces of dominance and charisma. These parallels suggest that human cultures repeatedly mapped instinctual psychology onto a limited but powerful set of animal archetypes. Now we introduce a fourth layer, indigenous North American medicine wheels. While tribal traditions vary widely, many medicine wheel teachings associate directions with animals. In certain plains traditions, east, eagle, vision, illumination. South, coyote or mouse, growth, trust, vulnerability. West, bear, introspection, strength. North, buffalo, wisdom, endurance. Structured differently from zodiac systems, the medicine wheel also links time cycles, cardinal directions, and animal intelligences. Across all systems, several core archetypes recur. Predator of land, lion, tiger, wolf, bear. Aerial seer, eagle, hawk, falcon. Serpent force, snake, dragon. Endurance animal, ox, bull, buffalo. Speed and travel, horse, deer. Cunning intelligence, fox, monkey, rat.
These recurrences across Eurasia and the Americas suggest they represent foundational instinctual categories within the human psyche. Carl Jung would call these universal archetypal motifs. In The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, he argued that similar symbolic forms emerge independently because they arise from shared psychic structures. But shamanic traditions would interpret this differently. They would argue these animals represent spiritual intelligences interfacing with humanity through culturally specific language. The difference between these interpretations is ontological, not structural. The structure remains consistent. Birth time correlates with animal-coded instinct. Now consider triangulation. If your Western sun sign is Leo, lion symbolism, your Vedic moon is in Magha, lion symbolism, and you were born in a Chinese tiger year, you have a triple reinforcement of apex predator archetypes. This does not guarantee your guardian animal is a lion or tiger, but it suggests strong alignment with that instinctual current. Conversely, if your Western sign emphasizes water, Cancer, or Pisces, your Vedic moon falls in a deer-linked nakshatra like Mrigashira, and you were born in a rabbit year, you may carry prey animal sensitivity archetypes, alertness, empathy, environmental awareness. The guardian spirit animal, if encountered in vision or dream, would likely fall within the dominant cluster indicated by your birth signatures. What is critical here is pattern convergence. One system alone may feel abstract. 2 overlapping systems increase probability. 3 create structural resonance. This is how ancient astrologers refined interpretation by layering solar, lunar, and planetary influences. Your guardian animal may not be determined by your sun sign alone. It may be revealed through the moon, the ascendant, the ruling planet, and cross-cultural correspondence. However, there is a complication. Astrology provides predisposition, but shamanism emphasizes encounter. A person with strong lion signatures may encounter an eagle instead, because the soul requires aerial perspective more than dominance. In this case, the guardian animal may compensate rather than mirror. Therefore, we must distinguish between natal archetype and active guide. The natal archetype is encoded at birth. The active guide emerges when alignment is required. Sometimes they are the same. Sometimes the guide appears to balance what is underdeveloped.
Astrology maps potential. Shamanism tests it. In traditional societies, no one declared their spirit animal through preference. It was revealed under pressure. Among Siberian and Tungusic shamans, the calling often began with crisis. Ethnographic records describe prolonged illness, fevered dreams, psychological disorientation, or spontaneous visions. Mircea Eliade, in Shamanism, Archaic Techniques of Ecstasy, documents accounts in which the initiate dreams of being dismembered by spirits, reduced to bones, and reconstructed. During this visionary ordeal, an animal often appears, not as decoration, but as participant in the reconstruction. The animal is not chosen, it arrives. In some narratives, the initiate resists the calling. The illness intensifies. Only after accepting the spirit helper does equilibrium return. The implication is clear. Misalignment produces fragmentation. Acceptance restores structure. In Plains traditions of North America, the vision quest served as a formalized encounter process. A young person fasted alone in isolation, often for several days, awaiting a dream or sign. The animal that appeared was not interpreted casually. Elders helped decode its meaning within tribal cosmology. Black Elk recounts that his childhood visions were not self-generated fantasies. They carried instruction, symbolism, and direction for his role among his people. The animals within those visions acted with agency. This is a recurring feature across cultures. The guardian animal behaves as though it possesses will. Celtic accounts of the Fylgja suggest that the spirit double could appear in dreams to others before major events. Icelandic sagas describe animals manifesting before battle as omens tied to specific individuals. The animal was not merely symbolic of temperament, it was predictive of destiny. In Amazonian shamanism, particularly among certain Shipibo and Quechua lineages, the ayahuasca initiation frequently involves encounters with animal spirits, jaguars, anacondas, birds of prey. These are not considered hallucinations in indigenous ontology. They are teachers. The jaguar is often regarded as a master of the forest and a symbol of power and navigation between realms. The pattern persists. The animal is experienced as guide, protector, instructor. Modern psychology would interpret such encounters as archetypal imagery emerging from the unconscious during altered states. Jung himself underwent visionary experiences recorded in the Red Book, where symbolic figures presented themselves autonomously. He did not dismiss their autonomy lightly. He treated them as intelligences arising from deep psychic strata. The distinction between inner and outer becomes unstable in these states. What matters is relational continuity. A true guardian pattern tends to demonstrate consistency over time. It may first appear in childhood fascination, an inexplicable draw towards wolves, hawks, snakes, or horses without cultural prompting. Later, during adolescence or a crisis, the same animal recurs in dreams. In adulthood, it appears during major decisions, in symbolic art, unexpected sightings, or spontaneous imagery during meditation. Repetition is diagnostic. Shamanic systems emphasize three primary confirmation channels: dream recurrence, crisis appearance, and external synchronicity. Dream recurrence involves the same species appearing across different life phases with coherent behavioral patterns. The animal is not random, it interacts. It guides, warns, protects, or observes. Crisis appearance involves the animal surfacing during illness, emotional collapse, or existential redirection. This aligns with Siberian accounts of the spirit helper arriving during breakdown to initiate restructuring. External synchronicity involves improbable clustering, repeated sightings, symbolic references appearing in unrelated contexts, or encounters immediately following significant internal decisions. Skepticism is appropriate. Human cognition detects patterns easily, but shamanic discernment does not rely on a single occurrence. It requires convergence. One dream is anecdotal. 5 recurring dreams over 20 years form a pattern. A lifelong fascination, reinforced by crisis appearances, strengthens probability. There is also behavioral mirroring. Individuals strongly aligned with a wolf archetype often display pack loyalty, territorial awareness, and acute sensitivity to group dynamics. Bear-aligned personalities may withdraw cyclically for introspection and re-emerge with renewed strength. Eagle-aligned individuals frequently display elevated perspective, strategic detachment, and intolerance for confinement. The guardian does not override personality, it amplifies instinctual baseline. However, there is an additional layer often overlooked. Not every animal that appears is a lifelong guardian. Some are seasonal guides. Shamanic cosmology distinguishes between primary spirit helpers and temporary allies. A snake may appear during a period of transformation and recede afterward. A raven may guide through grief. A horse may dominate during a phase of rapid expansion. The primary guardian demonstrates longevity and identity resonance. Seasonal guides correspond to transitional tasks. Discernment requires time. Another criterion is emotional neutrality. When individuals fabricate or project an animal identity, the attachment is often ego-reinforcing. It enhances image. It feels flattering.
Authentic guardian encounters often carry gravity, sometimes discomfort. A timid individual may encounter a predator. An aggressive individual may encounter prey. The animal challenges imbalance rather than validating persona. In certain Mongolian traditions, the shaman's spirit helper could withdraw if disrespected. Illness or misfortune would follow until proper ritual acknowledgement occurred. Whether interpreted spiritually or psychologically, the principle remains consistent. Alignment must be maintained. The guardian relationship is reciprocal. This is why casual appropriation of spirit animals in modern culture lacks depth. Without initiation, repetition, or disciplined discernment, the concept becomes aesthetic rather than structural. Initiation does not require extreme ritual in contemporary life, but it does require attention, silence, dream journaling, pattern observation, and cross-referencing with birth signatures. When natal configurations suggest strong serpent symbolism and dream life confirms recurring snakes during periods of transformation, the convergence strengthens. When lunar placements indicate deer-like sensitivity and lifelong recurring deer imagery accompanies emotional turning points, alignment becomes clearer. The guardian chooses through resonance. Resonance is amplified when the conscious personality becomes quiet enough to perceive it. There is also the matter of fear. The animal that unsettles you may deserve examination. Fear often signals repressed instinct. The predator you avoid may symbolize power you have not integrated. Jung observed that shadow aspects frequently appear in animal form. Thus, the guardian is not always comforting. It may be corrective. Recognition is less about declaration and more about sustained observation. The animal that walks beside you leaves tracks across decades in dreams, temperament, crises, and synchronicities. The imprint was present at birth. The encounter emerges through life. The relationship stabilizes through acknowledgement. Destiny, in this framework, is not imposed from outside. It unfolds when instinct and consciousness cease opposing each other. Alignment with the guardian animal does not change who you are. It clarifies it.
Recognition rarely arrives as a single dramatic event. It accumulates. Across shamanic and mystical traditions, the guardian presence reveals itself through repetition rather than spectacle. The human mind is prone to novelty. The spirit, if it exists as described in these systems, relies on pattern. Dreams are the primary channel. In many indigenous traditions, dreams are not dismissed as neurological residue. They are considered a secondary reality. Among the Ojibwe, dreams were historically treated as communications requiring interpretation. In ancient Greece, incubation rituals at temples such as Epidaurus involved sleeping in sacred spaces to receive healing dreams. The assumption was consistent. The dream state permits contact with guiding intelligences. A guardian animal tends to display behavioral coherence in dreams. It does not flicker randomly between forms. It appears as the same species across different emotional contexts. Its role remains stable. It may observe silently. It may guide through terrain. It may intervene during threat scenarios. The key variable is continuity. A single dream featuring a tiger does not establish guardianship. A tiger appearing at ages 7, 16, 29, and 42, particularly during life transitions, suggests structural presence. Carl Jung wrote that recurring dream motifs indicate unresolved psychic material or foundational archetypes. In Man and His Symbols, he emphasized that repetition signals importance. The psyche insists through recurrence. If the animal recurs independent of conscious focus, probability increases that it reflects deep architecture rather than surface imagination. The second channel is temperament alignment. Guardian archetypes express through instinctive behavior long before conscious identification occurs. An individual aligned with wolf symbolism often demonstrates heightened sensitivity to social hierarchy, loyalty structures, and territorial boundaries from childhood. Eagle-aligned individuals frequently exhibit elevated observational capacity and preference for distance during conflict. Serpent-aligned personalities show cyclical shedding patterns, radical reinvention phases followed by concealment. These behavioral signatures often precede exposure to symbolic frameworks. The third channel is synchronicity. Jung defines synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence not explainable by direct causation. When an individual contemplates a major decision and repeatedly encounters the same animal, in conversation, media, physical environment, or symbolic imagery, clustering becomes notable. The criterion is density within a compressed time frame. A hawk appearing once is ordinary. A hawk appearing 3 times on the day of a life-altering choice suggests symbolic amplification. Shamanic systems interpret such clustering as the spirit helper drawing attention. Skepticism remains valid. Humans are pattern-seeking organisms. However, guardian recognition does not rely on a single anomaly. It relies on long-term statistical weight. Another diagnostic feature is emotional tone. When the guardian animal appears, whether in dream or waking life, the emotional response is distinct from ordinary curiosity. It may produce calm recognition, heightened alertness, or inexplicable familiarity. Some report a sensation of being observed without threat. Others describe a gravitational pull of attention. The reaction is neither hysteria nor indifference. It is marked. There is also the matter of childhood fixation. Before cultural conditioning intensifies, children often display consistent attachment to a specific animal, drawing it repeatedly, requesting stories about it, imitating its movements. In some cases, this fixation fades under social pressure, but resurfaces in adulthood through dreams or crisis encounters. Because birth energy imprints early temperament, childhood attraction may serve as an early indicator of guardian alignment. Fear, however, must be examined carefully. Not every feared animal is a guardian, but persistent, disproportionate fear may signal shadow resonance. Jung observed that the shadow frequently manifests as animal imagery. The animal one avoids most aggressively may represent unintegrated instinct.
If birth signatures indicate strong predator archetypes, yet the conscious personality suppresses aggression or leadership, the predator may appear in dreams as threat rather than ally. Integration transforms threat into guidance. Discerning between projection and authentic pattern requires elimination of novelty bias. If fascination emerges only after exposure to zodiac content or symbolic discussions, confirmation bias is possible. If the pattern predates conscious study and remains consistent across decades, authenticity strengthens. There is also a physiological component rarely discussed. Individuals strongly aligned with specific archetypes often report somatic resonance when encountering their corresponding animal. A shift in breath rhythm, muscular tension, or subtle nervous system activation. This aligns with the Latin root anima, breath or life force. Instinct engages the body before intellect interprets. Across animistic traditions, the body is considered a sensing instrument. In certain African and Siberian lineages, recognition of a spirit helper involves trance states where the initiate mimics the movement or sound of the animal spontaneously. The body entrains to the archetype. The distinction between psychological symbol and energetic alignment becomes blurred. Modern individuals may not enter ritual trance, but micro-expressions of alignment still occur. Posture shifts. Voice tone changes when discussing the animal. There is embodied familiarity. Repetition across 4 domains strengthens identification. Dream continuity, temperamental mirroring, synchronicity clustering, somatic resonance.
When these converge with birth chart indicators, lunar placement, ascendant symbolism, elemental dominance, triangulation increases reliability. However, there is restraint required. Declaring a guardian prematurely can solidify projection. Allowing the pattern to mature prevents inflation. In traditional systems, elders confirmed recognition. Contemporary individuals must adopt methodological caution in place of communal validation. Time becomes the elder. The guardian pattern does not demand urgency, it persists. When recognition stabilizes, a shift occurs. The animal ceases to feel like an external curiosity and begins to function as a lens. Decisions align more easily. Instinctive reactions become intelligible. Recurring life themes reveal coherence. The animal is not an accessory to identity. It is a translation of instinct into form. Destiny in this framework is not a rigid script, but a directional current. The guardian archetype indicates how that current prefers to move, whether through endurance, elevation, transformation, loyalty, speed, or sovereignty. When instinct and conscious choice synchronize, friction decreases. The presence that walked beside you since birth becomes visible not because it arrived late, but because attention finally stabilized long enough to perceive it.
Recognition alone changes little. Alignment changes trajectory. Across shamanic cultures, once the spirit helper was identified, the relationship required maintenance. It was not symbolic admiration, it was disciplined integration. In Siberian traditions, the shaman invoked the spirit animal before healing rituals or journeys into non-ordinary states. The helper was not decorative mythology, it was operational. Without it, navigation between worlds was considered unstable. The structural principle applies psychologically as well. If your guardian animal reflects your dominant instinctual current, then ignoring that current produces friction. Honoring it produces coherence. A wolf-aligned individual thrives in bonded alliances with clear roles and mutual loyalty. Isolation without purpose erodes vitality. Conversely, forcing such a person into environments that demand constant superficial sociability without depth creates fatigue. An eagle-aligned temperament requires periodic elevation, strategic distance from emotional entanglement. Denying that need results in overwhelm. Granting it restores clarity. A serpent-aligned psyche moves through cycles of shedding. Attempts to preserve outdated identities generate internal tension. Allowing transformation, even when disruptive, maintains energetic flow. In Vedic astrology, acting in accordance with one's dharma is considered essential for reducing karmic friction. The Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, verse 35, states, "Better one's own duty, though imperfect, than the duty of another well performed." Interpreted psychologically, this suggests that living in misalignment with one's inherent structure produces instability. If the guardian spirit animal encodes instinctual dharma, then alignment becomes practical rather than mystical. This does not require ritual dramatization, it requires behavioral calibration. Observe how your energy regenerates. Observe what environments deplete you. Observe what roles feel structurally natural rather than socially imposed. The guardian archetype clarifies these patterns. Chinese five-element theory reinforces this idea. A person born under strong wood energy associated with growth and forward expansion, stagnates in rigid environments. A dominant water element requires adaptability and depth. Metal requires precision and structure. Earth requires stability and continuity. Fire requires expression and visibility. Each element is mirrored in animal symbolism within the zodiac. Destiny alignment, then, becomes elemental alignment. There is also ethical responsibility embedded in traditional frameworks. Among Plains tribes, an individual aligned with bear medicine carried the responsibility of introspection and healing strength. Eagle medicine carried vision and clarity for the community. Wolf medicine carried guardianship and loyalty. The archetype was not self-serving, it was communal. Modern individualism often distorts symbolic systems into personal branding. Traditional cosmologies treated them as obligations. The guardian animal revealed not only who you are, but what you are accountable for expressing. The Norse concept of the fylgja included fate linkage. To betray one's nature weakened fortune. To live in accordance with it stabilized trajectory. From a Jungian perspective, destiny alignment resembles individuation, the integration of unconscious archetypes into conscious life. Jung argued that psychological health requires acknowledging instinct rather than suppressing it. The animal figures that appear in dreams represent raw psychic energy. When integrated, they provide vitality. When repressed, they distort behavior. Thus, the guardian spirit animal is not a mystical accessory to identity. It is the visible form of instinctual intelligence. Alignment involves 3 disciplines. First, acceptance of temperament. Not every person is built for constant leadership. Not every person is designed for isolation. Forcing a rabbit archetype into lion performance creates strain. Forcing a lion into perpetual concealment breeds resentment. Second, cyclical awareness. Predator archetypes require engagement and conquest phases, followed by rest. Prey archetypes require safety cycles to restore equilibrium. Serpent archetypes require intentional shedding periods. Horse archetypes require movement. Third, conscious refinement. Instinct without awareness becomes impulsive. Awareness without instinct becomes sterile. Alignment merges both. In Hermetic philosophy, the human being is described as a microcosm capable of conscious participation in cosmic order. The Corpus Hermeticum emphasizes that understanding one's nature permits elevation. Whether interpreted spiritually or psychologically, this suggests that clarity regarding instinct enables elevation rather than entrapment. The guardian animal does not dictate events, it shapes response patterns. Destiny is not a rigid prophecy imposed at birth. It is a field of probabilities influenced by how consistently one acts in accordance with intrinsic structure. When alignment stabilizes, certain outcomes become statistically more likely. A wolf-aligned individual who honors loyalty builds enduring alliances. An eagle-aligned individual who trusts perspective avoids reactive entanglement. A serpent-aligned individual who accepts transformation avoids stagnation. Resistance delays trajectory. Cooperation accelerates it. There is also humility required. The guardian archetype does not elevate you above others. Every animal carries strengths and vulnerabilities. The lion's pride may isolate it. The deer's sensitivity may invite overwhelm. The wolf's loyalty may become rigidity. The serpent's secrecy may become concealment. Alignment involves refinement of excess as well as activation of strength. Over time, the relationship between conscious identity and guardian archetype becomes less dramatic and more integrated. The animal no longer appears only in dreams or crises. It becomes visible in daily posture, decision-making, and environmental preference. The presence that seemed external reveals itself as structure. The birth moment encoded potential. Life revealed the pattern. Awareness completed the circuit.
The question was never which animal you prefer. It was which instinct you were born carrying. When that instinct is acknowledged rather than suppressed, destiny ceases to feel arbitrary. It begins to feel directional, not because fate controls you, but because you are finally moving with your own current instead of against it.